Every day of our lives we are on the move, and I don't mean like the morning commute or when you take your children to school, but we're moving on epic proportions. Right now the earth is hurtling around the sun at over 100,000 kilometers an hour, and we all go with it. And we are closer to the sun in the months of January and February than we will be for the rest of the year. And we have came to explore and have an adventure in the world's most northern town and the world's most northern city, here right at the top of Norway. And we're starting our adventure off here in a little place called Alta, which is the city of the Northern Lights. Hello, good morning and welcome to Alta, which is in the Finnmark area of Norway. Yesterday when we arrived, I think I had a little bit of brain freeze. As I said, the North Pole was 400 miles north from here, but it's actually closer to 1,400 miles closer to where we are now. I think before we actually get exploring, I need to show you exactly how big Norway actually is. Most travellers will have heard of Tromsø or even the North Cape, and where Hammerfest and Alta actually sit. So you can see here on this map, it is a very, very big country. And if you were to tip Norway up almost so it's reversed, from the bottom of Norway, it would actually reach all the way to the bottom of... That's how big Norway is. And where we are now, the Russian border is only 140 kilometers away if it was to fly by bird in a straight line. And we're also very close to Finland, also, which lives next door to Norway, very close by as well. The whole of Norway is vast, and I must say it is the wilderness which definitely controls up here in the Arctic Circle, because it is biting cold, and the people here are very, very hard people to live up here in these freezing conditions for almost 6 months of the year. I think along this journey to Hammerfest, we're going to be making rather a lot of stops. While I just wait to show you something, as you see the snow up all the mountains and on all the trees, but just as I pan the camera around for you, look at this. This is actually a frozen lake, and I guess, when I say guess, see the chunks sticking up. I guess this is where it's started to defrost and then refreeze again, and the ice is pushing upwards to make all these lovely, beautiful cones. This is absolutely wonderful. This is raw. This is real winter. Take a look. Up here in the Arctic Circle, you can have the land of the midnight sun, where for almost months the sun doesn't set and it just rises, spins around, never actually setting. But then in the winter, you also get months and months of just darkness where the sun is under the horizon. But now we're just coming to the end of that, where it's early February. The sun will just tickle the horizon, and sunrise is at 8:30 currently this early in February, and sets at 3:30 in the afternoon. So the reason we have the polar day and the polar night is because of the Earth's rotation around the sun. The Earth takes 24 hours to rotate fully, as we know, and it spins around the Earth on an elliptical orbit. So let's imagine like an egg shape. That's how the Earth spins around the sun. Now, if we look down here, I've kind of done it, but please, this is not to scale. So we have the sun, and its sun rays go towards the Earth, like so. And this is now where we are in the season. So the sun is coming, this being the Arctic Circle just here, okay? So as the sun rays are shining, because of the tilt of 23.4, 25 degrees, this being the Arctic Circle, the sun isn't actually hitting it. So this will be dark. And as we get round to the summer, the sun rays would actually be lighting all of this fully. So the sun is shining down here. So Australia, it's getting a lot of the sun's strength and power, but up here, it's hardly getting any. That's why we have the seasons of the dark and the day, and it's just tickling back in. So sunrise and sunset currently is 8:30 in the morning, and it will set by 3:30 this afternoon. And we're not even halfway to Hammerfest yet. We really have to get exploring. We are almost there. We are almost at Hammerfest. And as we've came further up the Arctic Circle, you'd think it would actually get colder, but it actually warms up. It's currently only -7. And that's because as we've came up towards this beautiful island here, the ocean swings right around over and comes back in around the island. And because of the Gulf Stream and the currents of the ocean, so the Caribbean's down here across the Atlantic and makes its way up the side of Norway. And that's why you get such great wildlife as humpback whales and orcas, what feed here in the spring and summer times. So the water cannot freeze here, or does not freeze, because it's so mild. And like I say, it's -7 degrees now. It should be colder, but it isn't. And we're just about to cross this bridge here. Even though I did say it was warming up and it's -7, even my tears are starting to freeze. The lovely, lovely tiny waterfalls which have slowly froze, as we know that the freezing point of water is 0 degrees. And you get all of these magnificent little waterfalls that have trickled down the sides of the cliffs and made these beautiful winter ornaments. It really is such a different world compared to what it is back home in England. I really am so happy to be here. if driving really isn't your thing and you want to see a different perspective of Norway, there is the Hurtigruten company, and they do ferries from the very top of Norway and they go all the way right down to the very, very bottom. I once caught one from from Tromsø all the way down to Trondheim, and that was a 5-day excursion for all the fjords. And this one goes up and down the whole way of Norway, and it takes a long time. I don't know how long, but imagine being on that beauty with this light and this weather. As I was turning on my gimbal and my phone, I fell over, slid in the ice, like down a little hill in a car park. I've banged my elbow and twisted my ankle, and I'm sorry to say it, and a Tesla driver, whether you want to say how it says it all, didn't even bother stopping to slow down or anything. Paul literally had to grab me and move me out of the way of an oncoming car who just ignored me. And it's not like you can't see me. Feeling a lot better after my cup of coffee, and I thought I wanted to tell you something which I find an interesting fact here up here in Hammerfest. Firstly, Hammerfest sits on the latitude of 70 degrees north. Now, if you remember 2 years ago, I was in Antarctica, and ironically, where I was 70 degrees south. So that's wonderful that I've been to both the bottom and the top of the world at the same latitude, longitudes. Anyway, here we are up in Hammerfest. And firstly, I wanted to tell you about an author called Bill Bryson. I'm not sure if you do know of him. He's a travel author, and he wrote a book called Neither Here Nor There. And this book was about his travels, and it's to do with this famous bus stop. And he didn't really like Hammersmith. Hammersmith? We're not even in Hammersmith. We're in Hammerfest. And he didn't like Hammerfest very much because of how the incident at this bus stop happened. He had booked a trip from here to head south. He came up here in search of the mystical Northern Lights, and his ticket had his name, first name, surname, but the manifest for the bus actually had it back to front, so it was like his surname and his first name, or there was like one letter difference. And the bus driver wouldn't let him on the bus. Even though his seat was booked, he wasn't allowed to board the bus. He asked if he could buy another ticket. They said no, because that bus was full. So he was stuck. The bus driver did say, well, if no one turns up for that seat, you can have it, but you had to buy it. So he knew that it was his seat. Knowing that he wasn't going to turn up when it was time to leave, the bus driver said, that person hasn't turned up. You can now buy a ticket. Otherwise, he would have been stuck here for a whole week waiting for the next bus to come in the height of winter. And that, for him, kind of took the excitement of being here in Hammerfest, not Hammersmith. Let's go exploring a couple of the places that we want to see today. It's only approaching 2 p.m. and it is rapidly getting a lot colder, and the sun will set in just over an hour and a half here in Hammerfest. I was come to find this lovely church, and this is the Hammerfest Kirke Church, and it was originally built in 1620, and in World War II the Germans actually took over this part of Norway, and after the war and they all retreated, they literally burnt down every building in the whole of Hammerfest including this church. And it was rebuilt just after the Second World War. And inside, part of this church was built with just original Norwegian stone to actually pay homage, shall we say, to its original memory of being in 1620. Beautiful triangle shapes all along the roof. They weren't just designed like that as a whim, they were actually designed like this as a mark of respect for the old tradition where the fishermen would go out to sea, bring back their catch, and the fish would then dried out on like triangle shaped racks. And as a mark of respect for that old tradition, that's why these triangles are in place. I wanted to just come back towards the stained glass window as it's an east facing window, so as we know the sun rises in the east, and I don't know if you can actually see the colours from here are actually coming through. And then finally, as small as this church actually looks, it can fit 525 people in here at once. If hiking is one of your pastimes, up here in Hammerfest, I nearly said Hammersmith again, in Hammerfest, if you're walking along the main street of the city, you'll come across this beautiful pagoda. And if you look on it, you'll see the little red squares, and above it you will also see polar bears. Now, the polar bear is actually the state symbol of Hammerfest. Now, there are no polar bears on the mainland of Norway. There is actually polar bears up in Svalbard, the island further north. Now, I can't tell you the exact year, I'll have to Google it and put it on the screen, but a polar bear actually did arrive here on the mainland of Norway once, as it's believed that polar bears can swim a long way while they're looking for food, but from Svalbard to here is a long way, so it couldn't have done that. They believe it came over on an iceberg. It had actually gone out hunting, got on there to rest, and it just actually floated across here. So that could be why it's the state symbol, who knows. But there is actually a polar bear society here in Hammerfest, and we might have a look in because some people say it's just a tourist trap, as there isn't any polar bears actually here. Let's go and find out. Not only does it hold many other little records, but also this tiny little church here. It is the world's most northernmost Catholic church on earth. Along the main street here in Hammerfest, you will find the Tourist Information Centre, and then attached right next to it, look a bit very windswept, kind of look like this chap. Alongside the Tourist Information Centre is a free little museum that you can come and have a look at the history of, to do with Hammerfest. It's got some wonderful things on display. You have the animals there, which once upon a time were real and live, and I can't remember the word, so I'm just going to say these stuffed animals. You have the jawbone of a whale, along with vertebrae of the whale. That once was a real polar bear. To then the old traditional crab pots, because king crab fishing here is huge. It isn't the biggest export up here in Hammerfest in the very north. Oil and gas is their biggest income, shall we say. Now, to prove that you've been up here to Hammerfest, you can pay for a certificate at the Polar Bear Society, where we are now. Now, it's not cheap by a long way. It is, forgive me, I've got a real runny nose now in all this cold. You fill in your name and the local mayor of Hammerfest. It's signed by the mayor to prove like the official stamp that you have actually been here. So what actually makes Hammerfest hold the world record as the world's most northern city? So, Hammerfest has long claimed the title of the world's most northern town because it has a residency of 5,000. Its town population, it's actually just under 8,000, and there are places further north that do exist, but they're only small villages, research settlements and mining towns. A town usually requires legal status and due to its population and its size, and that's where Hammerfest makes its claim. There is also a Norwegian town called Honningsvåg, should I say, and they both dispute it as being the most northern, but I'm here in Hammerfest, so Hammerfest actually wins. No other arguments, not interested. Hammerfest wins. And Svalbard, like I was saying earlier, it is further north. If we are like right up here, you can see right at the very top there is Svalbard, but that is not classed as a city, so Hammerfest wins. I keep trying to sort my hair out so I can do this video. I'm very windswept. So I've officially got it. It does have quite a lot of your personal details on, so I'm going to show you what you will get inside of your certificate. You were given an official certificate with your full name. You're given a membership card. So anyone who joins this is given an official number. You can't do it online. You actually have to come here physically so you can become an official member. So you can't cheat online. You also get a sticker and a pin badge, which I will be wearing with pride. The Polar Bear Society Club has been going for 63 years, and here is the official book of the very first person, going all the way along until it became digital form. Knowing my luck, I'll be about 864,023,002. But at least I can say I am part of it now. And just as 3:30 arrives, the sun has gone down, it's got very cold, and we came to the town square of Hammerfest with the polar bears. It is a very popular tourist attraction to get a little selfie with the polar bears. So here I am to finish our time in Hammerfest, and I've got 4% battery left. So here I am, my little adventure to the world's most northern city has been completed today. And did you know that polar bears, they have a sense of smell, and which can smell up to 30 miles. Their fur is actually transparent and it's hollow. So if you were to take an infrared camera, you wouldn't be able to see it. And one has been recorded for swimming up to 340 miles to try and find a nice little seal for lunch. So So that's it, my darlings. That's Hammerfest. Let's go back to the warm on our way. Maybe even see some northern lights as we drive through those beautiful mountains. -24. 5:30 in the afternoon. Oh my gosh! Oh!